Hey guys, welcome to a different type of video again. And today we're going to be reviewing Getting to Yes by Roger Fisher and William Uri. This is my most recent book. I've nearly finished it. I'm like 10 pages out, but I wanted to go through it because it was quite interesting. And obviously, I have loads of other books I'm happy to talk about, but right now I'm going to talk about this. Also, I'm in the middle of London on a Monday night in a hotel, and I've pretty much got nothing better to do. So why not? Right. So Getting to Yes, negotiating an agreement without giving it. Now, why did I get this book? Well, first of all, I already knew the book was quite popular because it was in the popular area of Waterstones where they have all the books which are like best selling and whatnot. But then also there was a Reddit post a long time ago which I came across, and it was on Ask Me Anything, the subreddit, and basically some guy, I'll make sure to the link below, but some guy in there was like, I worked in propaganda for like 20 years, ask me anything. And then someone asked him what books does he recommend. He recommended this, and he also recommended the 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. If you know me, I'm in marketing. I love marketing. That was one of the reasons I got it, because I wanted to see what it was all about. And basically it's just about, this book just tells you about different, I want to say tactics, different approaches to negotiating. And it makes you realize as well how many times in life you realize you come across negotiation without you even acknowledging it necessarily. So I liked it because it kind of broke things down. It has, the whole premise of the book leads with this idea of wanting to negotiate on principle rather than position. There's a difference between positional negotiation and principle negotiation, and it's arguing that, or suggesting that principle negotiation is better and more sensible. And it makes you realize when you do have not a conflict necessarily, but you find yourself in a negotiation, it could be whether to go to McDonald's or KFC, or whether to go to Barcelona or Amsterdam, or it could be bigger, with on governmental levels with wars and such. Like, what you find is that when you argue over principle, you're likely to find more commonalities with the person you're negotiating with in the first place. So you might find that you have more in common with the person that you're negotiating with, and based off that you'll realize, okay, we both want X goal, like we both want peace, for example, or we both want to visit this one store. It's just that I want to do it at this time, you want to do it at this time. So then it encourages you to find alternative ways and look for alternative solutions and approach negotiations with that matter and that mindset that, it's you and the person against the problem, as opposed to you versus the person over the problem. So that was a really nice and probably my biggest taking from the book. I liked how it was written. It was very easy to understand. It did get quite complex in terms of applying it, so it'll give you examples and things, but there's only so much that you can retain when you read a book in general. So that's, although I might not necessarily apply it every single day or in every single instance, but there's going to be times now when I might be arguing or, approaching an argument, and I notice the signs of it and be like, okay, you want one thing, I want another. Let's think about the principles. It also teaches you to use other means of measurement over whether something's right or wrong. For example, if you're being overcharged for this was an example in the book, but if you're being overcharged for your rent and you find out that the surrounding area is like £200 less in general, you can use that as a point of negotiation when you're speaking to your landlord, as opposed to just going to the landlord saying, hey, you're overcharging me, which can come across aggressive, come across as, attacking. And especially if you want to maintain that relationship, when you remove the people from the situation, which is another big point of the book, when you remove the people from the situation and you simply apply, logic and look at principle again, let's look at the surrounding areas, let's look at the average cost in, this radius, and then approach with that, it puts you in a position where you're like, well, isn't it sensible or isn't it liable to just go, based off logic? Like it's a lot more logical. So yeah, I don't know how much better to explain it. I recommend reading it. Who do I recommend it to? If you like business, for sure, 100%. Because, like I said, there's going to be times when you're in business and you might be, I don't know, negotiating like an events venue or something, and they're saying they want this much, but you want this much. But you both might have the same goal in mind, to put on a big event or to have a good turnout or something. And then with that in mind, you guys can sit and figure things out. So some of the examples inside the book are very, like I said, macroeconomic. So it does look at things like, governmental level negotiations that have happened in different countries around the world. But again, it's showing examples of how when you apply this logic, or even just going to third parties to help you with the negotiation and things, it makes it clear that negotiation doesn't always need to be A versus B. It could be A and B versus C, with C being the problem. And it's also very tactical in that it encourages you to always have an alternative option. So no matter what you go into your negotiation with, you should always have an alternative option. Otherwise, don't bother negotiating. And it also explains the advantages of and disadvantages of the typical approaches. Typical approach to a negotiation would be, for this book, I want to pay £5 for this book, I'm not willing to pay any more. And the seller of the book might say, I'm selling this book, I'm not willing to sell it any less. And what you find is that when you approach negotiation like that, it can make you really hard-headed, and it just makes the situation worse. It creates friction, it ruins relationships, when it's possible that, you might be able to find some kind of middle ground. Okay, so how would you then approach that middle ground? And that's what I was saying before. You'd look at, okay, maybe you might want to look at similar books, similar to this kind of theme and topic, find out the average price and base it off that. And then you go to the seller and say, hey, look, this book's worth £8, this book's worth £4, this book's worth £3. Shall we just average it based on that? Because then you're basing it off a principle rather than your position or feelings. And again, that's the way of, mitigating and almost calming down that simple, hard-headed approach. Another really big tip in there as well was to always question the person you're negotiating with. So like if they're saying, I'm selling you this book for £8 and nonetheless, you then go and ask, okay, give me a reasonable explanation as to why you think that this is worth £8. Like, I want to know why. Because what you'll find that if they can't explain it, especially against, like I said, when you're comparing it to a principle, such as, averages amongst other books or whatever, they will find themselves messing up and be like, well, if they can't reason it, and then essentially you've won. So now, don't get me wrong, it's great, but it's not like I'm now going to be able to go out and negotiate with anyone and win every negotiation. That's just not how it works. There's going to be times that people are hard-headed and get very defensive, or they start using threats, or they'll just turn away and not even bother to negotiate. And times like that, I guess you can't really avoid. But again, this book talks all about that. So as much as it teaches you about negotiation and all the tactics and all the skills and tips or tricks or whatever you want to call it, as much as it does that, it also acknowledges the fact that there are going to be times where you come across people who are playing tricky, or who are playing hard to get, or like to be in that superior position, and how to handle that. And again, it will encourage you to just question them, remove the people from the problem, and try and be collaborative, involving them in solutions. Talking about the setting of the negotiation, is it over the phone, is it over email? Towards the end, it gets into very interesting research. It gets really interesting because it explains the difference between emailing, negotiations over email, over phone, and face-to-face. 3 different methods of communication for the negotiations themselves can cause different outcomes in the likelihood of someone maybe overselling you or underselling you or lying. Like, it's very interesting. Yeah, but that's pretty much my review of Getting to Yes by Roger Fisher and William Ury. Yeah, I just wanted to recommend it. Really interesting, and especially if you're running a business, I'd say this is a must. Just because, again, although like I'm not necessarily going to apply this in every situation, but it's going to be there at the back of my mind, and I might think, okay, how can we approach this in a way that we might be able to get a more profitable solution for the both of us? Because negotiation, this taught me that it's not always a win. It's not always win and lose, win versus lose. It can be 2 winners if it's approached right. So that's going to be everything for now. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you found this insightful. Don't forget to drop a like, drop a comment, smash subscribe. Peace.